Ferrari would like to compete with McLaren, but at the moment it is not yet possible. In Formula One, there are no miracles, and without significant aerodynamic updates, the performance level of a car does not substantially change. The British team remains at the top of the category, while the Prancing Horse continues to chase. It does so with a certain level of understanding, knowing perfectly well the maximum competitive level it can reach, while waiting for aerodynamic updates to make a breakthrough. Ferrari therefore follows the known path even at the Miami International Autodrome in Florida this weekend. In the Miami pits, we can notice that the SF-25 is equipped with the specification already present in the last World Championship round at the 6.174-kilometer Jeddah Corniche Circuit in Saudi Arabia. We recognize it by observing the exit edge, slightly lowered to reduce the overall drag. This is a very minor change which is currently providing the desired results, at least according to the Italian team. This is true both in terms of balance and top speed. Although we are talking about the same rear wing with zero modifications, the configuration is not quite as similar as the one used in Saudi Arabia. The reason is simple. The technicians adjust the angle of the wing in its adjustable section. This means that the Italian car will be very different in terms of pure aerodynamic balance. The beam wing can also change depending on the needs, with various specifications available. We are talking about an adjustable element from which they try to extract either more or less airflow from the car's floor. All of this, of course, depending on the requirements for each layout. In Miami, it is essential to find a very good level of efficiency, as there are long, high-speed sections between the second and third sectors, interspersed with fast corners that require greater vertical downforce. The main doubt for the historic Italian team concerns the first sector. The Italian team needs to limit the damage in this regard to allow the Italian car to handle the rest of the track better. Looking at the comparison from the images taken by reporters from the Miami pit lane, it is evident that the McLaren solution seems to show no difference in the vertical downforce produced, with a similar downforce level. McLaren therefore has a lower overall downforce level compared to Ferrari. However, the red car has a larger frontal area, considering the size of the wing's leading edge, which appears slightly more pronounced in its central part. The wing used by the historic British team, on the other hand, has a different level in this sense, with less downforce in the wingtip area, namely the lateral part of the specification, right at the end of the flap that opens with the movable wing system, the drag reduction system. It is no coincidence that McLaren is overall less loaded, as the papaya-colored cars need to focus more on achieving higher top speeds at the moment. This is because the car's body generates higher drag, and in general, the British team relies heavily on downforce production to find performance, especially in fast corners, where it can carry more minimum speed at the center of the corner. The trend of the last few races has been that the MCL-39 single-seater is slower than Ferrari and Red Bull on the straights. If we think about it, at the end of last year, the situation was the opposite, with the RB20 being the slowest car of the top teams in the second half of the 2024 Formula One season. McLaren seems to be preparing to deal with less flexible aerodynamic elements, as will happen in Spain. That is why Lando Norris doesn't expect big differences from the Barcelona weekend onwards. McLaren emerges as the favorite to dominate the Miami GP weekend based on data from the first 5 races, as the track layout and expected temperatures are factors that, on paper, favor the Woking-based team. Of the circuits seen on the calendar so far, the characteristics of the American track resemble those in China. Most corners are taken between 70 and 100 kilometers per hour, with the exception of the medium and high-speed section at the end of the first sector, which represents the main difference from the Shanghai circuit. Expectations for the Chinese GP suggested uncontested McLaren dominance. However, the MCL-39 struggled over a single lap and had a lead of less than 0.2 over Mercedes, the second fastest team that weekend. After a difficult weekend in Jeddah where the W16 suffered excessive tire degradation on a circuit known for being gentle on tires, Mercedes is in a position to reclaim its role as second force and increase its gap over Red Bull and Ferrari in the standings. Red Bull will have minor updates, but on a rear-limited track like Miami, it could struggle again. McLaren is in contention to dominate the Miami GP. Slow corners, the importance of traction, and very high temperatures are ideal conditions for the MCL-39. Oscar Piastri has won 3 of the last 4 races. Norris cannot afford more mistakes if he wants to stay in the fight for his first world title. The track is fairly neutral in terms of the driver's preferences. A win by Norris could get him back on track, but everything depends on Saturday. On the two rear-limited tracks seen so far this season, only McLaren and Mercedes, with George Russell, have reached the podium. The steps forward made by Mercedes last year are evident in how they manage electrical energy on corner exit, a key area where their power units are making the difference at the front of the field. Russell's defensive moves against Charles Leclerc in China and Bahrain are emblematic, with the Monegasque never able to launch an attack due to the traction deficit. While waiting for updates targeting the SF-25's specific weaknesses, the goal is to continue improving performance and extracting the most from the car. Between Shanghai and Sakir, the main losses came in medium and high-speed long corners, which in Miami will mainly appear in the first sector. Rapid direction changes like the first chicane in Jeddah are not present in Miami, but the tight chicane in the second sector will be an important part of the weekend. On Florida's long straights, the SF-25 could be competitive against its main rivals. Despite the performance gap with Mercedes, Ferrari with Charles Leclerc experienced positive moments in Bahrain and China where it could have attacked Mercedes. In the sprint shootout, as well as in qualifying, it will be important to see progress on a single lap to start from a better position and exploit race pace, as seen in Jeddah. Mercedes still loses time in low-speed corners, but their best performances so far have come on tracks most similar to Miami. Compared to Melbourne, Suzuka, and Jeddah, the qualifying gap to McLaren shrinks, especially in the race down to about a tenth, and the W16 has shown a clear advantage over Ferrari and Red Bull. The Miami GP will be a good opportunity to extend their points lead over Red Bull and Ferrari, and also for George Russell in the Drivers' Championship. The Brit has never finished a season higher than fourth, and Max Verstappen is only 14 points ahead. Despite the circuit being unfavorable, Red Bull can count on the sprint format, which has always been an advantage for Milton Keynes. The prep work done in the factory often results in better performance early in the weekend, and Verstappen will be one to watch on Friday evening. Additionally, minor updates are expected on the RB21 while awaiting the major development package set to debut at Imola, where a significant performance gain is expected. As happened in Jeddah, Pirelli has again softened its tire choice for the Miami GP. C3, C4, and C5 compounds will be available to teams and drivers this weekend. Last year, the most used strategy over the 57 race laps was a one-stop from medium to hard tires, but this year a single stop could be more challenging. The high degradation expected during the race could open up the possibility of a two-stop strategy, an option made more viable by a relatively short pit lane where time loss shouldn't exceed 20 seconds. All of this could be compromised by thunderstorms forecast in Miami on Sunday. In the previous 3 editions, the weather has never brought rain, so a wet race would be a first, and something teams must consider when making setup adjustments before qualifying. In the only wet race seen so far, McLaren dominated, taking advantage of the wide tire operating window, with Red Bull and Verstappen the only ones able to keep pace with the MCL39, but only in the first part of the race. The difference, even in case of rain, would be the still high temperatures, which could pose an extra challenge for the RB21.